This podcast was recorded on Ghana land.
Hey, Olivia, I think the next big thing is going to be Orca fashion.
Orca, like the whales?
Yeah. Want to wear a salmon on your head?
What?
Roll the intro.
We need to be sharing ideas and data and helping each other out.
Yeah, I was accidentally wearing a wire. I was basically a spy.
Yeah, that's nightmare fuel.
They're almost like the science version of a crystal ball.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing this for my children. 7,800 years old.
Hello and welcome to Off Embargo, a podcast by the Australian Science Media Centre. I'm Stephen Mew.
And I'm Olivia Henry. And on today's show, we're going to cover some stories that have had us talking in the office over the past few weeks. So, of course, we have been covering some really worthy stuff on our news portal, SciMex, like the Origin Energy data breach and an OpenAI agent hacking a startup. Both quite scary, alarming stories.
Yeah, a bit of alarming stuff going on there. And we've got the comments from some Australian experts to give a bit more context to those.
Yes. So if you do want to check that out, you can go to scimex.org. But today I really wanted to talk about some stories that we just found really interesting. You might have seen these, you might not. But the stories we're covering today are speeding on the roads, Egyptian princesses, and orca fashion.
Oh, yeah, some of the stuff that we've been chatting about around the office. I like it.
Yes, exactly. First, we carpool together
Yeah.
into the office. Can we talk about speeding?
Wow. I didn't know this was going to be an intervention on the podcast, Olivia. I thought we were talking about stuff that happened at work, not on the way to work.
Look. I like to think we're very law-abiding citizens here, but you and I have both been in this situation. I know because we've been in the same car where we've been driving down the road, minding our own business, and then we're overtaken by some crazy hothead, driving like an idiot, zooming, weaving through traffic, and we've both thought, really? At these petrol prices? Seriously?
And usually you pull up at the traffic lights about 2 minutes later and they're right there. Like they didn't get anywhere.
Oh, that's a thing. So I was going to talk about this later, but that is also a paper that we had earlier this year. Do you remember that one?
I must have missed it.
Oh my goodness. So that one, so earlier this year in April, I think it was, there was a study in Royal Society Open Science. So this isn't what I was going to talk about, but I want to talk about it now.
Tangent.
Yeah, tangent. So they were looking at why that happens, why you could overtake a car and then it'll like potter up next to you. They did some stats on this and they were basically saying the timing of the red lights erases small advantages that you get from speeding.
The great equalizer.
Yes. And they actually call this the Voorhees law of traffic. So if you've ever seen Friday the 13th, that serial killer who walks and then everyone else is running away from him and he just walks and catches up.
Right.
It's a maths thing. So if you ever have that happen, you overtake someone and then they catch up to you, you can just blame maths.
Or if you see someone driving really slow, then you can imagine them being this really scary big serial killer.
Yeah.
And that'll make you drive away from them faster.
Which we don't condone, of course. No, but what I actually wanted to talk about was researchers in the US. Basically, they had the same thought about, at these petrol prices, are you serious? So they looked into whether speeding is wasting money and whether it's saving time. So what they did was they analyzed 120 million real-world car trips across the US. So this study was from the University of Minnesota, and it's in a journal called Communications Sustainability. Basically, they looked at all of these trips, and then they kind of modeled it. So they analyzed all of the data, and they found that if drivers complied within speed limits, they could save an average of $22 million a day. On the whole.
Not each.
Not each.
Yeah.
That would
I'd like
be nice.
that money.
Yeah, I would too. No, that would be nice. But they could also, on the whole, save 25.4 million litres of fuel a day just by not speeding. And also save 57,000 metric tons of CO2, which contributes to climate change, of course. And that accounts in the US for almost 15% of their total energy consumption.
Unreal. That's a lot.
So, yeah, those are all the benefits. Do you know how much time they shaved off speeding?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Maybe it's worth all that extra fuel and damage to the environment if I get there quicker. So how much quicker am I getting there?
54 seconds. Yeah. So it's not
a great saving.
not worth it. It's just not worth it, which is it's crazy to me because I really did think they would save more time than that. But no, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, so what's the point of speeding at all then? You don't beat anyone at the traffic lights. You don't get to your destination faster, and you waste all that money and fuel, and you damage the environment.
Exactly. And the other thing is as well that the analysis actually only included roads with a speed limit of 54 miles per hour, which is about 70 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
For those of you who use real measurements. What they're saying is the overall prevalence of speeding and the potential for savings might actually be underestimated because they were only looking at kind of these same routes. So there might actually be more savings and more environmental savings to be had.
Huh. Well, there you go. We'll have to go driving to work really slow from now on.
That's right.
Speaking of slowing down, Olivia, we can slow down so far that we go back in time, if you like.
Woo, 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 woo. That's my back in time noise.
All the way to the wonderful world of ancient Egypt for this story that we've been talking about a bit in the office. This is a story about ancient Egyptian princesses.
Oh, I'm excited about this because I didn't get to write this one up and I only heard about it in passing. So I want you to tell me everything that you know immediately, please.
I'll do my best to give you the lowdown. So this is a story in Frontiers in Environmental Archaeology, which came out last week. Mm-hmm. And this is where they analysed 6 mummies from ancient Egypt. So it was 5 princesses, including 4 sisters and their dad, who obviously was the king if they were princesses. And they were buried around 4,000 years ago, along with items like bows and arrows, daggers and maces, which are, items traditionally associated with males, but they were obviously involved in these royal female burials.
This is already really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. Well, the researchers wanted to know if those things that were in those burials were sort of just symbolic or ceremonial objects, sort of for protection in the afterlife or statements of the wealth of the people who were buried there, or if they'd actually been used in real life.
So something that was special to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what they did is they analysed those skeletons using modern technology. They're looking at the bones and things, and they found evidence of a high level of physical activity, which was especially in the upper body. So that includes like muscle attachments that you can see on the bones themselves, which they say are consistent with repetitive movements involved in archery and using weapons like swords or maces. So the quick answer is yes, they actually did use those items. These weren't just sort of for show. Oh. These women were actually, using the bows and maybe even the maces and things as well.
That's really cool because you imagine with royalty back in the day, there's always this idea of that they were lounging around, getting everyone to do their, active work. But what you're saying is that they were actually out there using the bows and other weapons or just bows?
Bows, and they said that the maces and swords potentially as well. They had those kinds of upper body musculature.
That's so cool.
What's interesting that you say about that is that actually they analysed the whole body, obviously, and looked at all the bones, and they found evidence of multiple other injuries on these skeletons, which are consistent with falls or physical trauma. There was also some evidence of malnutrition maybe when they were younger.
Oh.
Which are all things you wouldn't associate with sort of a royal person and maybe even less so with a female. And they were all sort of well healed, these injuries as well, which suggests they had good medical care and that sort of thing like you would expect. But this sort of physical trauma, they say sort of indicates that these princesses maybe had a quite an active lifestyle. It adds a little bit more evidence to suggest that maybe they were using those weapons a lot. Maybe they were fighting.
Yeah.
There's no actual evidence of necessarily how they got the injuries, but they sort of said it's consistent with falls or physical trauma. What's really interesting about this story is that it opens up a conversation, I think, around how we assess the gender roles of people that we find from ancient burials in the ancient world. And there's a really cool little conversation article about this, actually about this paper specifically, written by someone called Claire Gilmore, who's a PhD candidate in anthropology and archaeology at the University of Bristol.
Yep.
And she basically she suggests that this is another great example of maybe a good reason to reassess the gender roles that we assign to people from ancient burials. So often when a person has been dug up from an ancient burial, there's assumptions that are made about their role in their life, including their gender and the other things they did in society based on the items that are left in their grave. So we often don't have any soft tissue, so you can't sort of see what they looked like, and you also sometimes don't even really have much in the way of bones. So it can be really hard to tell much about that person based on the physical body that's still there. So you use the items that are in the grave to try and tell you more about what they did in their life. And Claire suggests that the famous women from ancient Egypt that we know about, including Nefertiti and Cleopatra, were not anomalies in their standout positions as key figures, and that there's other women potentially out there that have maybe been incorrectly assigned, or that we have made assumptions about what their roles were in society. Even if they weren't buried with weapons, they also might have been warriors or trained to use them.
That's amazing. That's so interesting, because it really is one of those historical pictures that we build for ourselves over time, and it's so based on kind of our worldview as well, isn't it, in a way that we kind of have to try and break away from when we're making these analyses, which is such an interesting idea. It's kind of like that meme, and they were roommates in old kind of same-sex relationships that happened historically, or did or didn't happen. But yeah, it's just that idea of our perspective might change these stories that we can get out of them. It's quite an interesting historical debate that happens, I think.
And that's sort of the thing when you're looking at the items that are left in the graves. You're getting a window into potentially their life or something that they're trying to communicate, but it is just a little window, and there are a lot of other things there that we might not actually know about them. It's not just from ancient Egypt. Claire, for instance, in her conversation article references a Viking burial that was buried with lots of weapons, and that was assumed to be a man, but actually turns out to be a woman, that we can tell from more modern analysis of that body. I love this story because it's really showing that you can't judge a burial by its grave goods. Or maybe you can in this case.
Stephen, I know you've seen this one. I wanted to talk about the Orca video that's been doing the rounds on social media.
Been going everywhere, hasn't it?
It has been, and it's amazing. And we did have this one on Cymex. So for those who didn't see, you can go to our website, cymex.org, or our social media on Instagram at AusSMC, AUSSMC. But basically, let me describe it. Let me paint a picture. So there were some people swimming and filming some orcas swimming around a sunfish that I think had died. And first of all, terrifying. I can't imagine being in the water with an orca.
Swimming with orcas sounds, that's nightmare fuel right there.
Yeah, they're majestic, brilliant creatures, but my goodness.
Terrifying.
Yeah. So basically a sunfish, if you can't imagine, it's this giant disc-like fish, and it kind of just floats around the sea. It's the largest bony fish in the world. They can get to like 4 meters. So
wow.
Huge.
I thought they were up to 2 meters, but 4 meters.
Mm-hmm. It can
gigantic.
Get that big.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah. So if you just imagine this big, gentle giant floating around the sea, and these divers were filming the orcas, and suddenly one of the orcas basically swims at speed and rams it, and it explodes. This sunfish just explodes everywhere. And I know this isn't usually great podcasting to talk about a video, but I just thought we could play the audio for this, because we were watching it in the office and we were actually like, oh my God, you can hear the diver underwater screaming, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just have a listen to this.
Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh shit!
So what do the researchers think it means? Why were these orcas doing this? Was it to make smaller chunks so they can eat it, or?
So yeah, this is what I wanted to get to. And Stephen, I have trapped you here because, as you will know, but people listening might not know, I love fish and stuff that lives in water. So I know that orcas aren't fish, but let's just classify them as fish for this reason.
For a long time, we had a lot of eel chat in the office that we have to get past. So I'm glad we've moved on to orcas and sunfish.
Ooh, don't get me started on eels. That'd be great. But no, so basically, this is the first time this behavior has been recorded. And what they're thinking is, first of all, they observed a young orca eating the small fragments of fish that was floating in the water. So one possible explanation is that basically this makes it easier for the baby orca to eat the bits of the sunfish.
Yeah. So cutting up your dinner so that your kids can eat it.
Yes. Yeah. That's cute. Yeah. One of the other things...
Sorry. Here comes the aeroplane.
Exactly. The other thing that they think is that basically orcas are quite well known for having trends and fashion. I don't know if you knew this. Oh my goodness. Is this an orca meme factory? Is that what we're seeing? It could be. So the other thing that they were saying is maybe it's kind of like playing or social interaction or learning for this young orca rather than food. So that's possible as well.
Here's how to have fun. Explode a sunfish.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to remind you of some crazy stuff that orcas have done before. So tell me if you remember any of these. So in 2024, orcas were observed wearing funny little hats. Do you remember this?
I vaguely remember that one.
You remember? So they were observed wearing dead salmons as hats. And
the reason for that was just because.
Well,
it's funny.
Also, two possible reasons. One, again, being food and the other being fashion. So apparently in the 80s, they were also observed wearing dead salmon as hats. And then, so one orca, I think she was a female orca, was seen wearing this hat for about a year. So they probably would have like changed the salmon. It wouldn't have been
same one.
Yeah. But then two other orcas were also seen wearing it. And what some people have said is that it could potentially be that there was a shortage of food, so they were wearing the hats in the same way that you'd carry around a little bag of snacks when you're a bit hungry throughout the day.
Saving it for later.
Yeah. And then others were like, maybe it's just a fashion trend. But then there were other trends like the orca trend of ramming sailing yachts.
Right.
And then they also just seen playing with their food sometimes. So there's this common trend of food and play, and they're just really interesting animals, but also terrifying, and I don't want to swim with them. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to hear more about what we do, you can visit smc.org.au.
And if you love what we do and want to support us, you can follow the donate link to make a tax-deductible donation. This helps us keep supporting journalists to accurately report science and will help us keep making podcasts too.
If you're a journalist or researcher who would like to work with us, or if you want to read more of these interesting science stories that we've been talking about, you can visit our news portal, scimex.org. That's where we got all the stories from today.
We'll be back in a few weeks with another episode. Until then, catch you next time.
See ya.
Off Embargo is a podcast by the Australian Science Media Centre.
It's written, hosted and produced by Stephen Mew and Olivia Henry.
Our theme music is by Adelaide artist and producer Nathan Huai.
And our editing is by Stephanie Heffron.
This podcast was made possible by a science engagement grant from Inspiring South Australia.
And a special thank you goes to Justin MacArthur and the Peasinner Network.